87-hour period I took to defeat Elden Ring when I was a teenager. I went through an emotional roller coaster anger when I was battered by its most challenging challenges and exhilaration after I beat them, and some sorrow for the countless XP I had to forfeit on the route to some of toughest boss fights From Software has ever imagined. However, more than anything else, I was constantly amazed by the numerous stunning views and the vastness of an incredibly vast world, the constantly grueling adversaries, and also the ways that Elden Ring nearly always rewarded my curiosity with an engaging encounter, rewarding reward, or that was even more rewarding. From Software is a sequel to the game The Legend of Zelda. Breath of the Wild began rolling and continues to roll, making a fascinating and vast open world that stresses exploration and freedom above everything other things, and also making it possible to seamlessly integrate an entire Dark Souls game into the middle of that. It shouldn't come as a shock to anyone who has played it that Elden Ring was an experience that was one of the best and most memorable gaming experience. In order to set the stage, all you know at the start is that you're the character of a tarnished with no fame and blessed by grace, and you are required to make your way to the lands between and become an Elden Lord. What does that mean and how you can accomplish that, and what with that huge glowing gold tree, are issues you'll have to figure out yourself. As with similar From Soft game, this overall tale is difficult to absorb in the first few minutes of play, particularly because there is no in-game journal that can keep you up to date on the characters, events and unique terms you'll encounter over a number of hours. The game should have an in-game journal, but this is an interesting story that I was able to construct for myself. I'm looking forward to enhancing this knowledge with the inevitable meticulously detailed lore videos that will be released by the community in the future. It was the natural side stories which kept me interested instead of the overarching grand plot, which is credited to Game of Thrones' George R.R. Martin as the story's scenario creator. From Soft is cleverly not much different with regard to the approach games compared to its previous Souls game, Bloodborne, or Sekiro. You'll meet characters as you travel and explore the world, and get engaged in their issues. There aren't markers on the map, and no waypoints to direct players toward them. Moreover, the characters aren't always able to flag you down or initially desire or require to know anything about you. They're just individuals with their own agendas and objectives, whose lives are influenced by your own actions and actions. I've never experienced the general fatigue that occurs when my brain is overloaded by maps. It was refreshing in a world like this one. It was also thrilling to see familiar faces appear again later on in the course of wanting to know the reasons they came to this new region of the world, and the progress they had made on their journey. The downside, of course, being without markers, quest logs, or journal, it's quite easy to overlook certain plot lines and abandon them at the final. It's not a good thing, as I've already felt regret for not having been able to catch up on the stories some of my co-workers have had. However, for me, it was well worth it since, despite the 87-hour duration, I never experienced the open world fatigue which usually occurs when my brain is overwhelmed with a map overflowing with side quest markers that aren't resolved. In addition, any quests that are not completed will give me a reason to go on with New Game Plus. Freedom is the term that every element of Elden Ring's style is a reference to. Since the time you step your feet in Limgrave, which is the first of several interconnected regions in the lands between, you can go wherever you like. It's certainly not a novel idea in open-world games, however the way in which it's implemented in this game is quite unique. If you'd like become an adventurer and spend long hours playing Limgrave and exploring every mini-dungeon and fighting every boss, locating every NPC, and gradually leveling yourself up to be better prepared for the next adventure. You could also take an arrow that's the Light of Grace and it will guide you to the main road to the main dungeon, or you can discover a secret path leading to a completely different area intended for players with higher levels, and bypass the first major dungeon completely. Perhaps you can even steal some cool weapons in the game. A few aspects distinguish Elden Ring apart from games like Skyrim, which offer the same accessibility. It's not unusual, but certain aspects distinguish Elden Ring apart from games like Skyrim that offer the same flexibility. One of them is that Elden Ring doesn't scale enemy levels to match yours in any way, which means that moving into a different region is always a battle against more powerful enemies, which makes the risk/reward of doing something so real. Perhaps more importantly, it's the way the different regions are linked makes finding the new areas much more than just a matter of picking a direction and moving toward it. Limgrave is specifically designed with a specific route in mind, which takes the visitor to Stormvale Castle, and finding an alternative route that makes you feel like you've found an undiscovered passageway or alternative route. It's an amazing feeling that isn't found in many open worlds I've seen. Additionally, you have more choice in the way you fight unlike any other FromSoft game, thanks to a myriad of methods that are utilized in a variety of interesting ways. Stealth is an even more feasible alternative due to the inclusion of crouch walking. In Elden Ring, very rarely did my predictions come to pass. The main distinction lies in the fact that in Breath of the Wild, I was able to predict what's likely occur when I come to the glowing orange thing from the distance. I'll complete a game and then find a shrine to complete another puzzle and then probably find an awesome weapon that can be used as a temporary weapon, or an orb of spirit. This isn't to diminish the value of Breath of the Wild. It was awe-inspiring, however, that pattern began to become a little routine before the conclusion. The story of Elden Ring, by contrast, I've seen very few of my predictions come to pass. I'd go to a lake only to suddenly be trapped by a dragon. Go down a river hoping to gather a few crafting supplies only to discover an enchanted dungeon brimming with dangers and traps. Walk into an underground cave only to be surrounded by goblins, or ride an unassuming elevator and discover that it keeps going more and more. Till finally I was not in a dungeon, but in one of the many amazing new areas. The best part is that each of these mini excursions gives you an interesting item. It could be a brand novel weapon or a fresh ash of war, a valuable consumable, a fresh creature to summon, a brand new spell, or an entirely new NPC to speak to. You can find so many worthwhile prizes to be had that I have never was disappointed with my prize, no matter the amount of work it required. I have never been dissatisfied with my award, regardless of how much effort required. From Software makes this incredibly easy thanks to an array of unusually user-friendly features. The system for fast travel is a huge one that has a plethora of points scattered across the map. The marker system lets you place points onto the map to mark things such as NPCs, boss locations, hidden treasures, materials, out of reach, as well as an extremely fast spectral horse called Torrent, which lets you quickly move across the terrain and move up and down depending on the need. What's remarkable in Elden Ring is that, within the amazing open world designs, there are some legacy dungeons which still provide the same wide linear levels that Souls players have come to expect from the series. They are huge castles, forts and manors and underground labyrinths and much more that are filled with hidden areas, difficult bosses, and many paths connected by single-way shortcuts. If they were connected together without being linked by an open world, they'd be a separate entity, as Dark Souls 4. Bottom line, Elden's open world exploration is an innovative benchmark. It's constantly thrilling, rewarding and filled with moments that made me say holy shit in many various ways. It's always thrilling as well as rewarding. It's filled with moments that made me think holy shit. In terms of combat, Elden Ring is certainly the closest thing in comparison to Dark Souls 3 when compared with other games in From Software's collection of action RPGs, which are distinguished by heavy attacks, well-planned stamina management, as well as slowness compared to other games such as Bloodborne or Sekiro. Two of the most significant new features include the ability to counter a guard by blocking an attack using your shield, then pressing the attack button to follow it up with a crushing hit which can leave weaker enemies in a smashed state, as well as an attack that jumps gives players with melee weapons a brand new kind of heavy attack that is also able to stun enemies, leaving the door open for a crucial strike. They're both fantastic options that give combat classes enjoyable new tools. However, in general, From Software has certainly adopted the if it's not broken don't repair it method. The thing that makes the fight that you encounter in Elden Ring so good though is the enemy's design and range. It's not just that a good number of them are horrific, not enough to reach Bloodborne level of grotesquerie. However, there are some nightmare fuel from weapons. However, some of these monsters are truly violent, attacking you with uncontrollable combinations and swings that seem to last forever and be hit from a distance of 10 feet. Some are more cautious and are able to hide behind their shields, waiting for the right moment to attack you, or grab you when you're in the process of crashing. There are some that aren't and can be massive threat when they attack you with a swat that kills you in one go. A lot of games are designed to punish players who hit the dodge roll button with no taking care. This is what makes Elden Ring a very hard game. However, it's an excellent style of difficulty and one that is less concerned with rapid reaction speed and twitch reflexes, though they can certainly help, but more focused on acquiring, adapting and identifying the weaknesses in enemy attacks. Understanding the signals and taking advantage of every opportunity to capitalize is an important reason the games are so much enjoyable. There are also the bosses. I'm not wanting to ruin the experience, however, there are some that stand out as some of the most stunning mechanically and visually from software has ever created. Certain of the more recent ones came very close to exceeding the boundaries of what I would consider reasonable and fair in terms of life-saving second phases following already hard first phases, as well as 2 or 3 against 1 handicap fights, but fortunately, like I mentioned earlier, any barriers I encountered were easily overcome after I made the decision to think about a different approach and then come back stronger. Verdict. It's not a stretch to claim Elden Ring is from software's largest and most ambitious game to date, and the ambition has been more than rewarded. In spite of more than 87 hours of blood, sweat and tears that comprised some of the more difficult battles I've ever had to fight and numerous surprise, there are bosses I've not yet put on the table, hidden secrets I've yet to discover, as well as side quests that I have missed out on, a ton of spells, weapons, and abilities that I've never played with. All this over PvP and cooperative play I've been unable to get a glimpse of. While the basic rules of combat aren't much different in comparison to what we've experienced before, but the huge variety of brutally designed enemies as well as the brutal and enduring bosses have taken the combat to a whole new level. Despite all the threads that I couldn't get my hands on in my first game, of which I'm certain will be a lot, the experience I played through is easily among the top open world games I've played. Much like The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild before it, Elden Ring is one that we'll reflect upon as an experience that helped propel the genre forward. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel and visit our website clonatech.com to read more.